What's up, guys? It is Dr. Murphy from Murphy Medical Associates. Today's date is April 16th, 2021. Today, I am live streaming, coming to you to talk about the double mutant. That's right, we're going to talk a little bit about this magical double mutant. I don't know whether it's like a unicorn with wings, so does that make it a Pegasus or a Pegacorn? I don't know. Either way, it's killing people. It's serious, and we need to learn a lot more about it. So stay tuned.
And let's bring you this report from the Nigambodh Ghat. The ambulances are constantly arriving there in Delhi, and with those who've
I'd like to give you some world news here, and I'd like that you can take a look and see what's going on over there.
At the Nigambodh Ghat in Delhi yesterday, family members have been waiting 6 to 7 hours at times for finally their turn to arrive.
Right now we are standing at Nigambodh Ghat of Delhi, and this whole ghat is flooded. You can see the ambulance waiting for the cremation of the patient who died due to COVID.
You can see them taking off their Tyvek suits,
cremation ground,
putting them into the containers there.
I've been told by officials of Nigambodh Ghat, yesterday they have cremated more than...
This is the same thing we saw in New York City.
Dead bodies.
I don't know if you guys remember that. It's the same thing we saw in New York City.
Are also indicating the situation is very bad. You can see these fires are of patients who died due to COVID, though there are several people who are not following.
With burning fire is reminiscent of Game of Thrones. This is remarkable what's going on in India right now.
And these are the pictures from Nigambodh Ghat. More than 34 patients were cremated yesterday, and according to the officials of Nigambodh Ghat, on 1st of April, they did not cremate a single body. But in just 14 days, the number has gone up to 33 and 34. And they are saying the cases are rising, and so are the cremation grounds are flooded. And there are people who are standing on queue to get their relatives, the family members cremated.
Today, the double mutant, April 16th, 2021, on Murphy's Medical Minute. All right, guys, let's get to it. Let's get started here. Just bear with me 1 second. Okay, here we go. On with the show. I don't know about you guys, but I remember New York City in March. I remember the South on fire in June, and now I remember Michigan burning up in the spring. This new quote-unquote double mutations, the double mutant, is concerning. So today I present to you lions and tigers and double mutations. Oh my! B1.617, otherwise known as the double mutant, from India to Earl's Court. Who's this broadcast today for? It's for everyone. It's for everyone. As you can see here, in recent days, the genomic database is exploding with B1.617. The genomic database, where we all share our data across the globe, is lighting up. It is on fire with B1.617, the double mutant. Today we're going to talk about the new variant, the old mutations that are now together like peanut butter and chocolate. We're going to talk about some problems with world travel, and we're going to talk about some real problems with corporations that are going to fight over their right to make a profit during this global pandemic. And lastly, I'll give a little bit of future post-pandemic insight of what I think is going to happen in the future. It's crystal clear that this Indian variant may cause some very serious issues in the United States. Well, I want to rewind a little bit and say, well, how did we get here? How did we get here? I think that we take for granted that the wild type is this D614G variant that has been out there and gained preeminence. But many people forget that that variant was initially a variant before it became the wild type. Now it appears that B1.1.7 is gaining such foothold that maybe we're going to call B1.1.7 the wild type. And how did we figure all of this out? Well, good genomic science. Good genomic science. We saw S-signal dropouts initially with some of the high throughput PCRs. Our machines, our BioFire machines, never missed this because we did not have the X-gene target sequence, right? We did not have that target sequence that we used for our BioFire RP 2.1 kits, which are, by the way, the only FDA fully approved test for novel coronavirus. Well, what happened? We had to develop new assays, and I honestly am honored to be part of the work that was developed at Yale with Dr. Grubau's lab, where we were involved in collecting samples and validating these new assays. What we need to remember is there will need to be more assays developed, more technology, and more money pumped into this. President Biden recognized that, and so he put a bunch of money into testing. Unfortunately, those billions of dollars went to insurance companies to pay for the testing. Guess what? Are they paying? No, they're not. So who is going to take the risk? Who's going to develop the new technologies so that we can share all of this genomic data together? Well, some corporations are lining up and trying to do a money grab for the data. Unfortunately, wealth versus health at it again. So let's take a look here at the India coronavirus map case count. And this was just the other day. I don't know if you can see the 7-day average, but it's skyrocketing. It's skyrocketing. And one of the things that we're really recognizing here is that immune evasion is likely to continue with the B1.617 double mutant. We also know from the genomic reporting that 80% of all of India's sequencing now is B1.617. This case count is skyrocketing. The evasion is happening because of this double mutant. But we have to ask ourselves, why? Why? And to get that answer, we start by looking at the genome as a whole, and we look first at the spike protein, because this is where we're seeing a lot of the immune evasion going on. This is where we're seeing a lot of the increased infectivity going on here. And so this may confuse a lot of you, but reading it from left to right, you have the N-terminal domain to the receptor binding domain. And as you carry yourself through this set of amino acids, you can identify the ranges of the mutations. So when we say something like E484K, we know that there is an amino acid substitution at the 484th amino acid in the sequence here. Just to reorient you. And confusing, I know. Especially when we go and we'll share with you not the amino acids, but then we'll share with you the genome. And when we look at the genome, we look at the structural proteins coming from that genome. The structural proteins coming from that genome and the non-structural proteins as well. One of the biggest problems we have with genes and translating them into proteins is that not all genes make proteins, and not all proteins have structure. Right? We think about proteins as structure, but they also signal. And the spike protein, I think we're going to find, is a signaler and a structural protein. A signaler and a structural protein. There's a whole lot of other proteins going on here with the novel coronavirus. There's a whole lot of interesting proteins that can affect our immune system response. And the simplicity of this genome really leads to its effectiveness. It is a very, very simple genome that is highly effective. And when it mutates, man, watch out. So we've had a lot of different references here, right? You can see the genome, and then you can see this sort of color-coded scale for the South African variant, the Brazilian variant, and the UK variant. The big things that we're going to look at, and I'm going to distill this down even further, are into the following 4 mutations in the spike protein. And these are, if you take a look here, if you take a look up or you take a look over there, you can see the one that we're interested in, we're talking about today, is B1.617, which is in India. It's also in the United States, it's also in the UK, and it's also in Israel. So I like to look at the mutations in the spike protein because we know that amino acid changes in those parts of the spike protein lead to different cool things, dangerous things, but cool things. And one of those is the L452, which is an amino acid sequence which allows you to evade T cell response. And it also enhances binding. I could go into the biochemistry of that, but I don't have the time to do that today. That's something for Dr. Bean. Dr. Bean, if you're listening, it's all up to you. I'm not going to do that. But you need to remember that L452, when you replace to an arginine, you get enhanced binding and you evade T cell response. So everyone running around saying, oh, it's the T cells, we're going to be fine, we're going to live forever. No, no, no. It is not that reductionist. It's not that reductionist. And frankly, I'm concerned about the T cell escape. I'm significantly concerned about the T cell escape. I'm concerned about the antibody escape. So what makes B1.617 in India called the double variant, the double mutant? Well, here's why. B1.617 has two evasion mutations. 2 evasion mutations. Therefore, it is called the double mutant. That confuses everyone because it's got a lot of other mutations too. But the evasion mutations, it's got 2 of them. So it's got double mutation. Therefore, the double mutant. And these mutations help that evade T cell response and antibody B cell response. And what's so interesting about the EEK mutation that we've always worried about with the Brazilian variant P1, B.1.351, as well as the New York City variant B.1.526, the Indian variant is just a little bit different. Instead, what it has is a neurotoxic amino acid change, glutamine. Long strings of glutamine are actually neurotoxic. So now this spike protein has a glutamine in its place. Will that glutamine do some different things? You bet it will. You bet it will. The glutamine allows it to evade, but also enhances binding to ACE2. So now we've got an evader that is more infectious. An invader that is evasive and more infectious. And that's why we're deeply concerned about B1.617 in India. That's great. Well, let's keep it from coming here. Too late. Too late. B1.617 is already in the Bay Area, and I'm willing to bet it's in New York. Another study here, you can see the B117 tracking that we did with Yale School of Public Health and the Grubau Lab. Again, another publication that I was proud to be a part of and be able to help publish and be able to contribute data for. We found how B117 entered the United States. It's pretty crystal clear. John Fitzgerald Kennedy Airport. JFK International Airport is where the world travelers hang out. It's where they hang out. We shut down the country many times, but then we've opened it back up. Why? Wealth versus health. Wealth versus health. We know that the UK has the B1.617 variant isolated in India. We know the Bay Area has it as well. So what does that mean? Does that mean Boston Logan is gonna have B.1.617? You frickin' bet it will. You can bet your bottom dollar that the tech hub in Boston has B.1.617. And that's a problem because Massachusetts already is fighting a P1 Brazilian variant problem. It's already fighting a P1 variant problem. It's only a matter of time. The most efficient, most fecund, the highest fitness virus will win. And I don't know if you remember this, but take a look. B.1.617 appears to be much more fit than the rest of these, including B.1.1.7. Including B.1.1.7. Why? Because the double mutant can evade T cells and B cells. And this double mutant can also increase binding to ACE2. So what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? Well, I can tell you right now, we're not shutting down the airports. We're not shutting down the airports. But we need to remember as a global community that travel is going to bring new variants. Just like Puff Daddy said, more money, more problems. More infections, more problems. Why? Because the friendly skies are not so friendly. Airborne transmission of the virus is a given. We have always treated this virus as if it was airborne. We believe that at minimum 80% of cases can be related to airborne or aerosol transmission. We've seen it ourselves. That's why we wear N95s. And frankly, that's why we should be wearing N95s in the airport. That's why we should be wearing N95s in the airport. And what we need to remember is the biggest problem here is the push to open is immense. There are countries that are suffering. There are people that are suffering. Bartenders, restaurateurs, suffering. Cruise lines, suffering. Airlines, suffering. Although maybe the airlines are not suffering enough. Why? CDC just released a fact that if you remove a person from the middle seat, you reduce transmission of SARS-CoV-2. Airborne transmission is real. Close quarters increase the risk. The review from the Diamond Princess shows that like 80% was aerosol derived. Close quarters increases risk. There's no doubt about it. So the solution is to reduce close quarters. And the CDC proposes that you reduce plane capacity by emptying out that middle seat. Seems like a simple solution, except that gas prices are going up and the airlines cannot fly their planes with the middle seat empty. Therefore, the airlines refuse. But what's interesting about this, and I'll tell you right now, it's this. IATA has done studies of airport transmission, and the biggest, baddest places where the airlines are falling short are in the baggage claim, the transport to and from the airport, and gate crowding when you try to board the plane. This is where most infections happen. They don't happen on the plane. Again, most infections don't happen on the plane. The flying is the lowest risk event you have. Picking up your baggage is pretty high risk. Crowding the gate, super high risk. Eating in the restaurants, high risk. Eating food waiting at the gate, highest risk. That's the highest risk. You got people packed into that gate, eating food, having a meal together. Well, when I tell you about B.1.617, you're going to think again about having dinner together with people. So why? Who? Well, B.1.617 is hitting kids harder. It's hitting kids harder. We've had a lot of this virus with asymptomatic spread. B.1.617 is giving kids fevers. A lot of kids didn't have fevers. It's hitting kids harder. It's infecting more kids. We're seeing them have more GI symptoms, diarrhea and vomiting. We're also seeing more of the multisystem inflammatory condition in kids, MSIC. And most importantly, we're seeing that symptoms are lasting longer in children. No longer 1 to 2 days, but now 5 to 7 days. What else is going on? Even in adults, we're seeing different symptoms. More conjunctivitis, more diarrhea, and now, interestingly enough, as I said, the E484K is now EQA. The E484Q. And that glutamine is neurotoxic, and what we're now seeing reports of is tinnitus, vertigo, and deafness with B1.617. Lastly, there have been case reports of families all being infected eating a single meal together. There are case reports of entire families being infected with the B1.617 variant with just sharing a singular meal together. So what do we think is going to happen in the airlines when these patients are allowed to fly? What do we think is going to happen when we put them in the middle seat? Huh? Delta? You want to tell me? Cross country, what about United? United from San Francisco to Logan. What's going to happen there? That's what I want to know. It's crystal clear that this variant is spreading. It's now reported in 10 states of India. 10 Indian states have B1.617. It's in the US, in the Bay Area. It's in the UK, 77 cases reported. And it's also in Israel. What I find is going to be interesting about Israel is we know that whole country is basically on vax lockdown. As they open up, let's see if the Indian variant, the double mutant, takes hold in Israel. Let's see how effective Pfizer and Moderna are against B1.617. So, in closing, variants are likely going to escape vaccination. This double mutant, this double escape mutant is definitely going to escape vaccination. I think it's a fait accompli. The vaccine scientists are going to need to keep up. They're going to need to keep up. There's just no doubt about it. With P1 causing reinfections, I have a feeling that B1.617 is going to cause reinfections, and that's because virus gonna virus. The virus is gonna virus. Science has to keep up. But you know who else needs to keep up? Physicians. Physicians need to diagnose rapidly. And as we open up, we're going to see more infections and more variants, and we're going to need more testing. We're going to need more treatments, and we're going to need more prevention. These are the keys to open up that I've reviewed over and over again. Prophylactic medication, abortive medication, proper ventilation, Delta and United. That's right. If you're going to refuse to empty out that middle seat, you better prove that you're not going to get infections on the airplane. How are you going to do that? You're going to remember the first of these rules. COVID's airborne. COVID's airborne. That's right. And so I come with a heavy heart today, deeply concerned about the B1.617 variant called the double mutant. Remember, it's called a double mutant because it has double evasion mutations. A simple glutamine change makes something that was just an evasion more infective. So we have a more infectious, more evasive variant in 10 states of India, in the Bay Area, in the United Kingdom. I just showed you the science that we helped produce indicating how B1.1.7 came over, which was really JFK. International airports. Global world travelers are going to spread this virus like a fire. You need to think about that you're letting people that are on fire come to an area where they haven't encountered the virus before. This is as old as Cortez. This is as old as the old world meeting the new world. It's crystal clear what's going on here. We're choosing wealth over health again and again and again, and we're expecting different results. We're not going to get different results. We have to be brave and quick-witted. Brave and quick-witted. Right now, all we got is a bunch of chicanery where we are choosing wealth over health. And we'll continue to burn. And as long as the virus can mutate and avoid our immune system, it's going to go over and over and over and over again. That's right. So don't give me any Great Barrington poppycock foolishness. Virus going to virus, virus going to evade, virus going to mutate. Without effective vaccination in children, without very aggressive adult vaccination, we're going to see hotspots pop up everywhere in the globe. And as long as everyone in the globe can hang out together, we're going to pass variants. We're going to pass variants. We're going to have all sorts of ways to mutate. And that mutation is going to hurt all of us. This is Dr. Murphy. Today's date is April 16th, 2020. Thanks for watching Murphy's Medical Minute.
With